What is up, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 3&D. Man, it feels good to say that again. We were down and out for a little while, but I'm ecstatic to be bringing all of the best college hoops and NBA news to you guys now from the Empty the Bench podcast network. On tonight's episode, we'll be taking a look at the career of Carmelo Anthony, all of the coaching moves that have taken place, as well as some NBA draft news, and then, of course, the big Game 7 that's looming this upcoming week. So hope everybody's doing well. Once again, can't wait to start bringing the 3&D back to you guys. You can check it out down on the Empty the Bench podcast network. You can check it out at our new Twitter handle at the 3&D ETB, and follow Empty the Bench on all platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And we got everything for you guys. So jumping right into it, it's been a hectic week in the basketball world, obviously. We have a Game 7 going on. We have down a 3-0 deficit, possibly coming all the way back for the first time in NBA history. It's pretty amazing. So everybody drop that down, follow the 3&D at the 3&D ETB. So first news, of course, of the week, Carmelo Anthony retired. So obviously one of the best to ever do it. Played 20 seasons in the NBA, played 8 for Denver, 7 for New York. Was 10-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA, scoring champion 2013 for the Knicks. He decided to hang it up. He was out of the league for this entire season. Was bouncing around a little bit with bench roles, but for the few years before that was on the Lakers, as recent as last year. And he decided to call it quits. He was out of the league the entire season, and he's calling it a career. He averaged 22.5 points a game for his career, 6.2 rebounds for his entire career. So he's put together one of the best scoring careers in NBA history. He's top 10 all time in scoring, and will be a surefire Hall of Famer. Back in his heyday, was one of the best scorers in the game, obviously. A lot of people had comments and such about his defense, especially Knicks fans, but regardless, he's a legend. So the big question rings true now. What will Denver and New York do? Will they retire his number? Well, it's a very tricky question, in my opinion. New York, I definitely see them doing that, but the emphasis for the Knicks has always been winning championships to get your number retired. I mean, you see the guys in the rafters: Willis Reed, Dave DeBusschere, Dick Barnett, Earl Monroe. Like, those guys were all on either the 70 or 73 team. Walt Frazier, so on. Even if they weren't Hall of Famers, the only guy up there on the Knicks that wasn't, on their 70s Hall of Fame team is Patrick Ewing. And he obviously had to get his number retired. He's arguably the best Knick ever. So there's no doubt that it's going to be a tough decision for the Knicks, whether they want to put Carmelo Anthony's name up there. I mean, obviously, many fans are going to have differing opinion. That's for sure. I know a lot that are kind of supporting that the entire movement, and then others that hated Carmelo Anthony too. So it was very split when it came to the Knicks. As for the Denver Nuggets, I think it's a no, a plain simple no, for one reason only. Nikola Jokic is number 15 now, so they'd have to retire number 15 twice, which they could do, but you rarely ever see that happen. And Nikola Jokic, I think, has pretty much established himself as the best Denver Nugget of all time, after winning those 2 MVPs and bring them to their first ever NBA Finals in team history. So I think that Denver is probably a no, but the Knicks, there's a lot of talk in the front office. Be very interesting to see. Me personally, as a Knicks fan, I would like to see it. I would like to see them retire Carmelo's number, mainly because throughout the past 20 years, it's been difficult to get any type of star player to come to the Knicks and get any of them to have a desire to come to the Knicks, pretty much. And he was one of the few that wanted to play for the Knicks and wanted to win only with the Knicks. And I think that spoke volumes for his meaning to New York. Obviously you have the famous video of him coming in, getting announced for his first game after he got traded over from the Nuggets. They went to 2 playoffs with him. They went to the second round of the playoffs with him. So I think that he is one of the better players in team history. So I would like to see it more so just because, I was a Carmelo fan when he was on the Knicks. I always liked Carmelo. I wanted to see us win with Carmelo, and I always appreciated how loyal he was to the New York Knicks. So I'd like to see that happen. But regardless, Carmelo Anthony will be in the Hall of Fame one day. He was on the NBA 75 75th anniversary greatest players. So there's no doubt about that. His name will definitely be up in Springfield soon enough. But we'll find out soon enough, I guess, if the Knicks decide that they want to retire his number. So jumping from the 2000s back to the 90s, Scottie Pippen's comments on Michael Jordan. So obviously the Twitter world has kind of gone crazy over the past couple of days. Scottie Pippen went on a podcast basically saying that Michael Jordan wasn't anything before he came there. He was a terrible player. He was a terrible teammate. He took bad shots, all that kind of stuff. And basically implying that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. And we all know that Scottie Pippen has had hard feelings towards Michael Jordan as of the last several years. I mean, he was not happy about the way The Last Dance was portrayed. He hasn't been happy with, all the attention that Jordan's got, and he thought that he should get more. Obviously, you see a lot of, he's been in the news for a lot of other personal reasons too. So you never know what's going on, but I think it's just, him being bitter. I think that honestly, it was kind of funny because saying Michael Jordan was a terrible player was almost like comical when he initially said it. And when you first watch the clip, you almost feel bad for him, kind of, because there's no basis on what he's saying. I mean, obviously Jordan won Defensive Player of the Year and a scoring title without Pippen. He averaged 33 points a game in the 4 years before Pippen. You could look at those numbers and it's pretty crazy. I mean, he started winning championships after Pippen came, and all the LeBron fans kind of went on Twitter and were like, yeah, he was nothing without Pippen. Yeah, but that's the case for everything. You can say in the same way you can say LeBron wasn't anything without Dwayne Wade. He wasn't anything without Kyrie Irving, and he wasn't anything without Anthony Davis. You can say all that stuff. I mean, one player is not going to win you 6 championships. Obviously, he had to have supporting pieces around him. That's just the nature of the game. But if you factor in my opinion, if you factor in the supporting pieces that Jordan had compared to the supporting pieces that LeBron had, it's night and day. Huge difference. I mean, Jordan had one top 50 player of all time that he played with, and LeBron has had several. Anthony Davis probably going to go down by the end of his career. He'll probably go down as one of the best ever. Kyrie Irving as well. Kevin Love may end up being a Hall of Famer. And then obviously Dwayne Wade, one of the best players of all time. Chris Bosh is a Hall of Famer. So it's crazy that the Twitter world kind of erupted in the way that it did, but it's the typical LeBron versus Jordan debate that you love to see and drives you crazy as well. Frustrating as hell for sure. But those comments were very interesting. pretty funny, honestly, in my opinion. And hoping that Scottie is doing well. He's got a lot of stuff going on with his personal life, so we'll leave it at that. Now jumping back into the NBA nowadays. Coaching carousel is in full effect right now. Obviously, the Milwaukee Bucks just hired Adrian Griffin a day ago to be their next head coach. Adrian Griffin, 48 years old, played in the NBA from 1999 to 2008 out of Seton Hall. He's been a long-time assistant in the NBA. He's been an assistant since 2008. He was with the Bucks from 2008 to 2010, was with the Bulls from 2010 to 15, was with the Magic for one season in 15-16, was with OKC from 16 to 18, and has been the Raptors assistant since Nick Nurse took over in 2018. So he's been a long time assistant. This is his first shot at a head coaching job, and I think it's fantastic because he's done a great job as being one of the top assistants for some great head coaches. He coached under Thibodeau. He coached under Frank Vogel. He coached under Scott Brooks. He coached under Nick Nurse for all those years, won a championship with the Raptors in 18-19 as an assistant coach. So the Bucks make the first hire in the coaching carousel. They're bringing in Adrian Griffin, obviously after letting Mike Budenholzer go during the offseason. But there's 4 other teams that are still on the hunt for a new head coach. Detroit Pistons, the Sixers, the Suns, and the Raptors all leading their head coaching search. The Pistons top guys that they're looking at are Bucks assistant Charles Lee and Heat assistant Chris Quinn. Chris Quinn's been a name that is coming up a lot throughout these head coaching jobs. He's one of Spoelstra's top guys. Not only are the Pistons looking at him, but the Suns were also looking at him, and the Bucks were looking at him before they decided to hire Adrian Griffin. So he's been a popular name. A couple of X factors too for the Pistons job. Jerry Stackhouse was a name that came up. Obviously, NBA veteran, played in the league for a while, was a tremendous college player, and is currently the head coach at Vanderbilt. So his name kind of came up. Kevin Ollie is another one too that came up. National championship winning coach for UConn. He's been coaching in the overtime elite league over the past as most recently. So the Pistons have kind of looked around, looked at a few assistants, looked at some of those names, Stackhouse and Ollie. But they're still on the search. The Sixers, on the other hand, are only looking for top names. Mike Budenholzer is an early candidate. Nick Nurse is as well as Sam Cassell, who is yet to have a head coaching job. He's been an assistant for a long time. Obviously, was an NBA veteran up until the 2000s, and he was an assistant under Doc Rivers for a while. He's kind of bounced around from team to team. He's one of those guys. Adrian Griffin was definitely a top guy that had done his time as an assistant and was well on his way to becoming a head coach. But Sam Cassell is right up there as well. Mike D'Antoni is also a name that came up for the Sixers. I don't know how many chances Mike D'Antoni is going to get in the NBA to run his fast-paced offense that inevitably doesn't work. Obviously a bitter Knicks fan right here. With back in the D'Antoni days. And Monty Williams is another name that came up too, even though it seems like Monty Williams will not be coaching next year. He's still owed a lot of money from the Suns. He wants to spend time with family and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like that he's not a legitimate candidate, but he is interviewing for some of the positions. And Frank Vogel too is another name that came up for the 76ers. And then for the Suns, Budenholzer and Nick Nurse both came up. Doc Rivers, was just fired by the 76ers. He's a name that came up for the Phoenix Suns. And also potentially hiring from within, Suns assistant Kevin Young, who was under Monty Williams, is also a candidate for the job. And one big X factor for the Suns job is Ty Lue. There's a lot of speculation and rumors around the league that they could potentially snag Ty Lue away from the Los Angeles Clippers. That would be one interesting move. Tyronn Lue is a tremendous head coach, and he's not really getting too far right now with the Clippers and all their injury-ridden stars. But if he goes enjoys the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Suns are by far the hottest job out there right now. You have the chance to coach Booker, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul. If they decide to hold on to Chris Paul, there's a lot of rumors that they're going to be shopping him this offseason as well. But the Suns are a win-now team. And same with the Sixers, but the Sixers keep choking every single year. So I'd say that that's probably like the second best. But the Suns are very, very close. And they made it to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago. They lost to the Bucks. They're very close to being an NBA title contender. I thought that they would potentially make it this year too, but they weren't. That's definitely got to be the hottest job. So Budenholzer's up for it. Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse. We'll see who ends up getting it when it comes down to it. And then the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors' job is seen as one of the less enticing, but more enticing than the Pistons for sure. The Raptors interviewed JJ Redick for the job. That was already reported that he interviewed for it. Obviously, Redick, longtime NBA veteran, great three-point shooter, great college player at Duke, and is currently an analyst on ESPN. Goes on First Take a lot, does some color for some NBA games as well. He interviewed for the Raptors job. Steve Nash is also a name that has popped up. I'm not sure if he's actually interviewed or if there's really too much interest in him, but obviously Nash from Canada, from the Toronto area, would kind of like be a homecoming for him if he was able to get the head coaching job there, and was the Nets head coach last couple of years before Kyrie and KD ran him out of town, and then they ran themselves out of town. And then a couple of other names too that are popping up for the Raptors. Kenny Atkinson obviously was the Nets head coach before Steve Nash. Has been the assistant for the Warriors over the last couple of years. He actually accepted the Charlotte Hornets job last offseason, and 2 days later he decided to withdraw from it and return to being an assistant for Steve Kerr on the Warriors. So he's back into the conversation for some of these head coaching jobs. And Becky Hammon, again, another one. She was an assistant under Greg Popovich. She's interviewed for a few head coaching jobs over the past couple of years. Great basketball mind. So be interesting to see if they're able to come to terms with any of those names. But again, the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin because they were blown away with him. But I'm not expecting any of these jobs to fill up like right now. The big story right now is Game 7. That's going to take place Monday night. And I think all the other teams are kind of looking around for their head coaches and stuff, but also prepping for the draft if they're not still in it. So now let's jump over to some college news as right before we get to the Game 7. Ron Holland reopens his recruitment. So Ron Holland is the number 2 recruit in this year's class of 2023 for high school freshmen. He's a 5-star recruit for the class of 2023. He's ESPN's number 2. He originally committed to Texas. He committed when Chris Beard was still there, and he decommitted. Chris Beard was let go due to some allegations, and now took the Ole Miss job. But Holland reopened his commitment, and he's visiting the G League Ignite. And there's no real big incoming freshmen that are choosing the Ignite for next season. I mean, every single year we see that, like Scoot Henderson's this year. We saw Jaden Hardy the year before. We saw Jalen Green the year before. So there's always like a top five. One of the guys in the top five choose the G League Ignite, but that's not the case for this year. Most of them all chose college, except for Ron Holland. Since he reopened his recruitment, he visited with G League Ignite, and it sounds like that's might be where he's headed. So he's got the potential to be a top 5 pick in next year's draft, in the 2024 NBA draft. And he might be headed to the G League. So be very interesting to see. There isn't too many rumors about other schools that he's interested in. He decommitted from Texas a couple weeks ago, and the news that came out immediately was that he was visiting with the G League. So that's kind of the way that I'm interpreting that. He's going to. That's probably the direction that he's going to go to. Very talented player, though. Kentucky definitely was after him again, but Kentucky's got a lot of 5 stars coming in next year. So they definitely don't need him. But again, Ron Holland, could be a name to watch out for some of the top programs in college basketball if he doesn't choose G League Ignite. And now jumping over to some NBA draft news. The NBA draft withdrawal deadline is set for Wednesday. It's the deadline. Obviously the combine was last week. The draft lottery was last week as well. And the Spurs ended up winning the Wembanyama sweepstakes. They'll get the first overall pick, and will most likely end up with one of the biggest prospects we've ever seen in basketball history. And the last 2 times that they had a first overall picks, they've taken Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and those 2 ended up pretty solidly. So they're hoping to get that again with Wembanyama. But NBA draft withdrawals, the guys who declared for the NBA draft have until Wednesday night to withdraw and return to college. There's a lot of interesting names that are still on the board of potentially coming back. A couple of the guys that decided to come back, Kevin McCullough Jr. Is going to be heading back to Kansas for his 5th year. And immediately Kansas becomes the preseason number 1 team in the nation. I mean, they landed Hunter Dickinson, so he'll be starting as center. They got KJ Adams back. They're going to have McCullough. They landed Nick Timberlake, who was one of the best guys in the transfer portal from Towson. They got DeJuan Harris. They're going to be an all-around deep team, Kansas. And McCullough coming back is going to be huge for them for his 5th year. So he's signed to withdraw. I thought that he had the chance to be a late 1st round, early 2nd round pick if he decided to stay in. But he's ready to go back to college and test everything back out. And Tyler Burden's another one. 4-year star at Richmond, obviously mid-major. So not too many people know his name, but he's been one of the better mid-major players in the nation over the past 4 years. He's going to head back for his 5th year, but he's not headed back to Richmond. He's entering the transfer portal, and immediately he's linked to some of the top programs in the league in all of college. Indiana, UConn, Kentucky, Georgetown, and more are all linked to him early. That he'd be a huge piece for any of those teams. I think Kentucky, their team is kind of is pretty much set for next year. I think that they have a pretty well put together team, but UConn is still going to be waiting on Adama Sanogo's decision if he's going to stay in the draft, Andre Jackson's decision if he's going to stay in the draft, and Tristan Newton too. So there's a good chance that UConn loses a bunch of their pieces that won them the national title this past year. So that could be a huge piece if they're able to bring Tyler Burden in, who, again, one of the best mid-major players in the country. So obviously for next week's episode, we'll have a nice long list of all the guys who are headed back to college and withdrawing from the NBA draft as we continue our NBA draft coverage over the next month until the NBA draft takes place in late June. So that does it for all of the college basketball news. And now we head to the part of the show that everybody's waiting for, Heat-Celtics Game 7 preview. Obviously, last night, Derek White's tip-in kept the Celtics' dreams alive in Game 6. They were down 1. Marcus Smart took a 3 at the buzzer, missed it. Derek White came flying down the lane, tipped the ball in right before time expired, ended up winning by 1. Terrible defense by the Heat. I mean, I'm probably sound like a broken record, and everybody else has probably said that, but it was terrible defense. They left the lane wide open. Adebayo was out on the top of the key for some reason. Like you got to be looking to grab that rebound. Because he took the shot with about 2 seconds left. You should have known that if the shot misses, then they have a couple of seconds if they can tip it back in, and just were not able to do the trick. So the Celtics dreams stay alive. Obviously, nobody has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in NBA history in any round of the playoffs. The Celtics were down 3-0, and they won the last 3. So we're headed to a Game 7 tomorrow night in Boston. Boston now goes from being down 3-0 to having the upper hand in the series. And obviously the winner of tomorrow night's game will take on the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. So it's going to be a hard-fought game. Everybody's going to be giving it their all. It's going to be very interesting to see. Some of the interesting performances, though, from Game 6, Jason Tatum had 31 points and 12 rebounds. Great stat line, but he was 0 for 8 from 3. Jaylen Brown also had 26 points, 10 rebounds, and he was 0 for 4 from 3. So it's kind of crazy that they were able to put together a win while having Tatum and Brown 0 for 12 combined from 3. That's usually not a recipe for much success, but they were able to figure it out, and they got great performances from their side pieces. Malcolm Brogdon was out. Derek White stepped up big time. Al Horford didn't really do much on the stat line, but had a decent impact on defense throughout the game. And the Celtics are showing why they were the favorites to come out of the East, and why they won the Eastern Conference last season. They didn't show that the first 3 games, and they're showing that now as the season is starting to wind down, as their backs are against the walls every single night. And then on the Heat side, Jimmy Butler had a good game. He had 24 points, 11 rebounds. Caleb Martin has been the talk of the postseason, in my opinion. I mean, he went from this time last year, was on the Hornets with his brother Cody Martin, got released by the Hornets because they didn't even want him, signed a 2-way contract with the Heat going into this season, played so well that they promoted him to the actual roster, and is now getting starting minutes in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. He was a great player in college too. Saw him and his brother play in Nevada. But Caleb Martin, I think, has been the talk of the playoffs. Watching him in that Knicks series too. He played fantastic, hits big shots. He's a good defender, good rebounder too. Grabbed 15 rebounds last night. It's been those kind of pieces that have helped the Heat get to where they are. I mean, obviously they're an 8 seed, so that's what makes this entire series even more incredible, is the fact that the Heat are an 8 seed. The Celtics were the huge favorites going into the series, obviously. And the Heat go up 3-0, and the Heat look like they're going to be the second team ever to make the NBA Finals as an 8 seed. The only other team was the Knicks back in 1999 when they lost to the Spurs. And it looked like that was what's going to happen, and now all of a sudden it's 3-3, and the Celtics are 1 win away from being the first team to ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. So either way, history is going to be made in Game 7. It'll either be the second 8 seed ever to make it to the NBA Finals. It could be the first 8 seed to ever win the NBA Finals. Or it'll be the biggest comeback in NBA history, NBA playoff history, 3-0 lead, which is absolutely incredible. Got to give a shout out to Richard Jefferson. Drives me crazy as a broadcaster sometimes. But after that Game 3 loss he predicted that the Celtics were going to win out. Jaylen Brown obviously said the same thing, but of course he's going to say that because of his team. Just like Brandon Jennings saying Bucks in 5 back in the day. You always have to have plenty of confidence in your team and everything that's going on with your season on the line. So I give a pretty big shout out to Richard Jefferson because he did think that this was going to happen. I really didn't think that there was any shot this was going to happen. The way the Celtics looked in the first 3 games, I thought they were done. But they've completely turned things around. Huge congrats to them. Joe Mazzulla went from being on the hot seat to potentially, becoming one of the better head coaches in the NBA. Obviously, if they got swept in this series, a lot of people were questioning Mazzulla and, all those rumors and stuff about how Ime Udoka kind of his departure and how that left the team kind of empty-handed and distraught a little bit. So very, very, very interesting stuff. The Heat-Celtics Game 7 is going to take place in Boston Monday night, and it's a must-watch, obviously, for any sports fan, regardless of whether you're a basketball fan, whether you're a baseball fan, anything. If you love sports and you love the competition, Game 7 is the best 2 words in any sport. There's no doubt about that. So I'm super excited to see this game. You're going to get some grittiness that you've never seen from these teams. And I think one big matchup to watch is going to be Marcus Smart on Jimmy Butler. The last year's Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be harassing Jimmy Butler. Obviously, Butler has put up decent stats, but his impact on the game hasn't been that great over the past few games. I mean, last game he shot 5 for 21 from the field, which is horrific, even though he was 12 for 14 from the free throw line, including those 3 big free throws that he hit to take the lead in the final seconds. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Gabe Vincent is back, so Caleb Martin slotted in to the starting role over Kevin Love. Kevin Love didn't even see the court in Game 6 after starting pretty much every game in the playoffs before that. And Max Strus as well, another key player. Very, very. It's going to come down to a lot of different things. And Duncan Robinson, too, is going to need to step up. I mean, that 3 he missed was big time. And, it could end up costing them the series. Robinson, obviously, since signing that big contract extension, has not been the same player that everyone thought that he was going to be. He's really become like a 3-point specialist off the bench, which he's not a bad player, but he's not the kind of guy that they thought that they were getting. And Kyle Lowry also only played 18 minutes last game. He's going to have to play some more minutes. He's got to be more impactful. I mean, Duncan Robinson played 20 minutes, had 5 fouls. That was the big issue. There was a lot of foul trouble. I mean, Martin, Gabe Vincent, and Duncan Robinson all had 5 fouls in the last game. So they had to maneuver around that while also, playing their stars for the majority of the game. Jimmy Butler played 47 of the 48 minutes. I could definitely see Tatum played 44 of the 48 minutes. I could definitely see both Tatum and Butler playing all 48 minutes tomorrow night. And it's tough. To me, it's really, really difficult to predict how this game's going to go because the Celtics have turned it on to a different level the last few games, but the Heat should have also won this last game. So I think it could easily go either way, depending on which team shows up pretty much. If it's the Celtics for the first of games 5 and 6 or games 4, 5, and 6, then it's going to be the Celtics. But if it's the Heat from the beginning of the series, or if it's a mixture of both, we're going to be in for one heck of a game. I'll tell you that. So I'm hyped. So I'm hyped to see it. It's going to be a really good one. Obviously, we'll have plenty more coverage here on the Empty the Bench podcast network about Game 7. We'll have a nice recap. I'll be on Game On this week with Hank and Dichter, and we'll be talking more about how the Game 7 went and an NBA Finals preview too, with the Denver Nuggets. Still waiting around for the winner to happen. So hope everybody does well. Short and sweet episode. Want to thank everybody for bringing me back on the Empty the Bench network with the 3&D. So excited to bring the show back to all of you guys after being on a little bit of a hiatus. We were down and out for a little bit, but we're back and going to be bringing you all of the best basketball coverage here on Empty the Bench at our new time on Mondays at 5 o'clock. So hope everybody tunes in, and looking forward to seeing plenty more of you guys, and bringing everything your way. So I hope it goes well.